Convertkit versus Mailchimp. Now, this is kind of a long story, so let me give you the background really quickly. Just bear with me here. I first started using a newsletter around 2014, probably the end of 2014. So I've only been using newsletters for about 2 years. I started with Mailchimp because when newsletters kind of became like the big thing that everyone needed to have, Mailchimp was huge. That's where everyone was. It connected to everything. Everyone had tutorials on it. So I just started there, and it was free. That's important. So I used Mailchimp for about a year and a half. My list in that time never grew over 2,000 people, so I never had to pay for the upgraded version just because I had multiple lists that were for different things. So even though I had more than 2,000 subscribers, I was never sticking to just like one list of 2,000. So that's important to the backstory here. Now, when I switched over to Squarespace, I wanted to start taking my business a little more seriously, and I thought, keyword thought, that by switching to Convertkit, which was kind of like the big craze for a little while, that by paying for the service, it would kind of push me to grow my newsletter more and to really like dedicate the time to writing really good newsletters and making sure that they were really valuable and helpful for people and people wanted to stay subscribed. So, I only used Convertkit for a total of 4.5 months before I dropped the service. And there are a couple of reasons for this. I'm going to kind of give you the downsides first because we'll just get the bad out of the way. Convertkit, I had some serious issues with payments with them. I don't know if it was my card, if it was my account. I don't know exactly why it was such an issue, but every time I would try to use my business debit card, my business savings card, or my business credit card on Convertkit, it would just not accept it. I kept getting my card declined when I had plenty of money in the bank account for it. All of my other payments from other tools were going through just fine. I even called my bank. I had a long conversation with like 4 different people about what the heck was going on. And for some reason, their card just didn't like the company. I don't know. So there were a lot of issues with the payments. There was also a time when I was accidentally charged for an upgraded plan that I never signed up for, I didn't need, and I let them know, and immediately they refunded me the money. But, and they also gave me a free month. So their customer service is good, but it was just such an ongoing problem that it really started to kind of turn me off to their services. That being said, eventually I did just set up my personal bank account with the card, and, I just made sure to, like, transfer money over from my bank. But I did really like Convertkit. I truly did. It's still up on my library page. I still recommend it. For anyone who doesn't really like Mailchimp, if they don't like the design of it or they want more flexibility, I think Convertkit is an awesome tool. Their customer service is insanely good. Every single time I had an issue, I would get in contact with them, and someone would email me back within a couple of minutes usually. If not a couple minutes, then like a couple of, like 1 business day later. There are some major differences between Mailchimp and Convertkit that I didn't realize until I really got into the programs though. Before I converted over to Convertkit, I did a lot of research. I was reading a lot of the blog posts, one versus the other, and I just wanted to give it a try. So I signed up for, I think it was like a free 2-week trial or something like that, and I got my list set up. I got all that stuff, in order. I got everyone transferred in, and then it came time to design my newsletter. And oh my goodness, I've never had such a hard time designing a newsletter before. Mailchimp was all drag and drop. It's very easy. It's very similar to like Squarespace or Weebly or FreeWebs or whatever you use. Convertkit, I would compare to WordPress. You do need to know some custom coding. My dog is like chewing on her bone right next to my computer. Girlfriend, please. You need to know probably at least some basic HTML and basic CSS in order to create a newsletter that you like, in order to like design it nicely. There is absolutely no like help guides. Actually, that's a lie. There is a couple of help guides to help you design it. There's no help guides that just give you like a template or something to use, other than the basic template that's already installed, which is very basic. There is no way to like properly, because it's email and every like email provider, displays emails differently. There's no guide anywhere to tell you like what it would look like in Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever. So it can get kind of time consuming to try to design an email that looks nice in one, and then you might find out that it looks horrible in MSN or in Outlook or something like that. So it's definitely not just something that you can switch and set up really quickly like Mailchimp. It definitely takes more time. And the whole reason I converted over from Mailchimp in the first place was because I wanted everything to just be simple. Mailchimp has a lot of menus and a lot of options and a lot of features that I don't need. And so I was hoping that switching to Convertkit would kind of simplify that process and make everything really streamlined and only have the tools that I need. But a lot of the tools that I needed were a lot more complicated in Convertkit. Now, I did use Convertkit for quite a few months, so it wasn't like it was too hard to use or that it was confusing. It just was more time consuming. And because my whole reason for switching there in the first place was to save time, eventually I decided to switch back to Mailchimp. Now, I do want to say one of the major reasons that I switched back to Mailchimp is because I'm on Squarespace, and Squarespace connects to Mailchimp. If you want Squarespace to connect to ConvertKit, you either have to add a form from ConvertKit and use the embedded form or use like Markdown, or you have to use Zapier to go through a Google Drive spreadsheet, and you have to set up a whole automation process. I really like Squarespace's basic newsletter block, and I wanted to be able to use it. And the only way I was going to be able to do that without a huge time-consuming process was to use Mailchimp. So ultimately, that is the number one reason that we switched back. However, I have to say that I have tried probably every newsletter tool under the sun. Lead Pages was just far too expensive. I have no interest in paying that much for something so simple. ConvertKit, obviously, it's good, but it's time consuming and it's not very user friendly. And Mailchimp is just, it's like the basic tool. Everyone uses it because it's easy, but they could improve a lot. It's not a very quick interface. Like when you click on a link, it takes a very long time to load. It's hard to like switch between pages easily, and they just almost have like too many features. Also, their pricing, like tiers and everything, are just kind of stupid. They're confusing. They need to just make it a lot simpler. But all that being said, I do think that Mailchimp is probably the way to go for 95% of you. If you are really good at coding and you don't want to pay the fees from Mailchimp, but you want to be able to use the automation and the segments and all that stuff, then I think ConvertKit is a really good option. However, if you want the free version, if you want to just start growing your newsletter, or if you are comfortable in Mailchimp, just stay there. I promise you, it's one of the best on the market. There's a reason it's so insanely popular, and at the end of the day, like I said, I love ConvertKit. I'm still going to share their name. I'm going to keep them on my resources page because they are a really good resource. But at the end of the day, Mailchimp is the best option for my business. So that is why we switched. All right, that was long and ranty. Thank you for sticking with me. I will see you in the next video.